beautiful creatures of the world, and welcome back to Coffee with Kerri-Lynn. Today we are going to be talking about property rights in the great state of Maine. We're going to be talking about the law change. We're going to be talking about Presque Isle. We're going to be talking about Caribou. We're going to be talking about Aroostook County. It is a wild day weather-wise here in the far north of Maine, up along the Canadian border, in the crown of Maine. I hope you guys are having a nice, warm, balmy summer day wherever you are. If you can get out of your house or your office, even if it's for a few minutes, kick your shoes off and walk across the grass or the dirt. And I'm telling you, it works. Your anxiety, the stress starts to go away. People argue with me all the time. No, it doesn't. Go dig in the dirt. Touch grass, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. Here on the homestead, the only time I wear shoes is when I have to go off the homestead into the general public sphere and arena, which is not often these days. If you're joining me on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, or Pandora, welcome to my podcast if you've never been here. I just showed up in your playlist. Look at that. If you are subscribed to my podcast, welcome back. I'm a variety show. We talk about anything that pops into my head. It flies out my mouth. And sometimes we're both surprised by what I have to say on the topic. And if you are on the audio only, think about coming over to the dark side. Come over to the video part of my show on YouTube. Or on the mean green freedom of speech machine. Starts with an R, rhymes with crumble. There you go. Can't say it here. I'll be plunged to the bottom of the algorithm because that's just how it works. You get the bottom of the barrel just mentioning that platform. Competition is fierce, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. Anyways, come on over to the video only platform if you're on the audio, the video only. Come on over to the video platform. I simulcast the show in both places, but what you don't see if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel is the shorts that we do, and we're doing a series on gardening. We're container gardening. If you live in the city or you live in an urban area and you just can't tear up your lawns because they made crazy ass ordinances that do not allow you to rip up your lawn to put in the garden. Last major world war, they encouraged you to have a victory garden. This one, not so much. You can container garden. We have a video up on container gardening, and you can get quite the harvest out of containers. People do it all over the place where their soil just does not allow for them to be able to actually garden in the yard. And so they do it in containers, and they get a great bounty, and they can their own food storage for the winter. And we do some container gardening here. We do a big garden plant, except for this year. It's a small garden plant this year because we're building the podcast studio, and some of the lumber had to be stored on an area that I usually use as a garden. So I've had to sacrifice, give a little to get a little. That's what my contractor told me. And for those of you who don't know, that my contractor's my husband, so it's nothing dirty. But that was the conversation the other day. You got to give a little to get a little. And I want the podcast studio built really fast. I think I'm just going to stop podcasting out there. The minute we get the walls up, we started framing yesterday. And due to weather and his other obligations, I'm not his only client, unfortunately. I'm his most demanding client. I'm the client that can punish him without dinner or just forget to do laundry or whatever. But withholding. That's what he calls it. Withholding. Lockup. If the job's not done. Anyways, long story short, because of weather and his schedule, I think I'm going to get out there the minute we put the door on. It's not going to have any windows, and it's not going to be fancy, and the interior is not going to be done. I just can't wait to get into a space where I don't have to break stuff down every single day and set it back up the next time I want to podcast. So on the video platform, we do everything here. I have extra videos that we don't put on the audio only because it just doesn't translate. We've been foraging in the backyard. What you call weeds, I call medicinals. And we've been making dandelion oil, and we're going to be doing other backyard foraging videos for your viewing pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, like, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, doesn't matter. Any attention's good attention on YouTube. Any attention's good attention on the mean green freedom of speech machine. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate all of my subscribers. Without you guys encouraging my shenanigans, there would be no show. Okay, now let's get on to the property rights in Maine. You don't got none. You don't got any private property rights in Maine. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, there's a big stir in Aroostook County about what's going on with the homelessness and the squatting. And it's actually come down to the city of Presque Isle is going to be having a meeting, a referendum, whatever it is, their town council meeting, city council, on June 10th. They're going to be discussing an ordinance that makes it not legal to pitch a tent on town property, which will automatically translate over to private property. And there are a lot of people that are angry about this. We have a big homelessness crisis here in Aroostook County. We're the reddest part of the state. We have a big homelessness crisis up here. We have a big drug crisis up here as well. And we have people all over the place that just think that they can live on your property. Earlier this year, there was still snow on the ground. It was spring. We had a tweaker walk through our posted property. We have since made provisions for that to never happen again. Snuck right up on us. It was, if I hadn't looked out the studio window when I did, that person would have been at my door. And it was a wild, weird little exchange. And luckily, you know, my old man, he's old school. But luckily, he has the gift of being able to talk to anybody. And he escorted that young gentleman right off our property without incident. Now, had the dogs gotten to the guy, it would have been a whole different matter. But it ended very peaceably. The young gentleman went on his way, and it was one of the most frightening things that I have ever experienced up here. Somebody just kind of doing the whole trespass thing and knowing that they were so high on... Well, you don't know if they were high, Kerri. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. They were so out of it. And it could have been really, really bad. But it wasn't. Now we have to discuss property rights because according to rumors, y'all got none. Janet Mills, our lovely moonbat, blue as blue can be, Democratic governor, has allowed a law to pass through Augusta that allows people to pitch a tent on your dang front lawn, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that just, in essence, that is what that law does. There is no such a thing as private property anymore in the state of Maine. We have food sovereignty. We got that. They rammed that through because they knew that this explosion in the world was going to happen, but they took away your property rights. And if you are a homeowner or a property owner, y'all better start paying the hell attention to what's going on in your community. You really do have to stop paying attention to it because they're stripping you of your private property rights. We had in the, I think it was the winter. It was somewhere between the winter and in February and March, when the law became the thing. A couple in the Portland area went on vacation, came back, and there was a drugged out couple that set a tent up in their living room because of this new law, and it made news up here. And the police came and they removed the people living in the tent in the living room from the house. And they only removed them, this is what they told the homeowner, we could only remove them and charge them with trespass because they broke into your home while you weren't here. Had they pitched the tent in your backyard, then nothing we could have done. So the stupidity of the tweaker that set up the tent in the Portland couple's living room and tried to claim squatter rights. The only reason why that couple was removed from the property was because they did it inside a house. They broke into the home. Now, what's going on up here? Rumor has it on the Facebook, Facebook news. We have a crisis downtown. We have a lot of squatters, a lot of homeless people, and they're starting to take over the vacant buildings, the abandoned properties, and the police aren't going to do anything about it. Nay. People have been told this, and it's been all over Facebook on our community pages that they're just, you walk into the police station or you call the police, call the desk, and you're like, hey, somebody's squatting in my yard, and they're like, hey, we don't give a crap. I'm sure it's not as crass as that, but basically they cite the new law. And part of that new law is if you identify as being homeless at night, you don't get charged with criminal trespass. You kind of just asked to move along, and they ain't asking people to move along. So it becomes the property owner's problem. Now, the big controversy that is happening in Presque Isle is City Council is actually trying to fix the idiocy of this law that was passed in Augusta by our idiot Democratic branch of legislature, and okayed by the Queen. Anyways, long story short, they want to make it so that you cannot tent or live on public property, which would translate to private property. There is on the Facebook, rumor has it, that a gentleman has homeless people living underneath the porch of one of his properties. And he went down to the Presque Isle police station and he asked the guy at the desk to remove person living under his porch without permission. And they cited the law to him. They were not going to trespass that person. But what they would do as a courtesy is they would go to the property and they would kindly ask the person living under the porch to leave. But if that person says no, business concluded. And this is what's going on. It's brutal. It is brutal up here. And there is a whole bunch of people that are opposed to what City Council wants to do by making it so that the homeless people cannot do what they're currently doing. You know, and most of these people who are opposed to property owners exerting their property rights, exercising their property rights, they're from the group of tolerate me, but I will not tolerate thee. And they think the simple solution is to just give these abandoned buildings to people. Just give it away. Give somebody else's property away to somebody else. But don't install them on my property. See where this is going? We do not have enough shelters here in Aroostook County. We know this. We have a severe housing crisis. If you are from away and you have not secured housing, please do not move to Aroostook County. We have a big, huge, severe problem. We don't have enough places for people to live. We have a very short summer season, and since the early 20s, people have been moving up into the area not realizing how brutal the climate in Aroostook County is. The weather. You have a very short summer here in Aroostook County. Everything we grow here on the homestead has a very short growing cycle. You plant the seed, it matures in less than 90 days because we don't have a lot of time to mess around. Most of the time in the summer, we're sitting around our fire pits, our campfires, in sweatshirts in the summer because it's cold. We live on the border of Canada, hello. And it gets very cold. And our winters get to minus 60 degrees. And there have been people that were trying to, last winter was a very mild winter, but we still did drop below zeros. We got into the minus 20s. And there were people tenting. There were people trying to stay in tents in Aroostook County, down by the Lowe's. There was a whole encampment down there. And citizens were going down and giving blankets, and it's not the climate to do that. And in the early 20s, we had a bunch of people that were escaping the city. And it was like escape from Alcatraz. And they came up here not understanding what our weather conditions are here in the winter, and it just blew their mind. We helped a couple that was in Lowe's, because at that time everything was short, you couldn't buy this and you couldn't buy that, and they had a wood stove, but they didn't have the piping, and they didn't understand how to connect their wood stove to their chimney. And I mean, we showed them what we use. Again, we don't teach anybody anything here on the homestead, but we showed them what we use. And they were getting the duct work for central heating, and we were like, you can't do that. There's black pipe that you need. And they were freezing. It was end of November, beginning of December, and we were in Lowe's, and they still hadn't had their heat hooked up. They didn't know where to buy wood. It was just, this is what happened in the 20s when people were escaping the city into the rural areas to avoid the plague. And it was a shitting mess. People just don't know how to do anything, and they don't understand the living conditions here this far north. And like I said, last year we had a whole homeless encampment down by the side of Lowe's and down by the river, and it was people were in trouble. See, what people don't understand, when you just want to give other people's property away, property that was hard earned. Maybe the person doesn't live in that home anymore. Maybe they had a family emergency and they are out of state for a couple years taking care of an elderly parent. Doesn't mean the property is abandoned. And it doesn't mean abandoned property is given to people who don't have a place to live. You cannot give property to people who don't have property, who have not earned the property and paid for the property. For a myriad of reasons. But a lot of times people are homeless, not just because of hard luck. So, and our shelters are full of families and people with hard luck because they want a place to live, and they will play by the rules of the shelter. And we're full. We don't have many shelters, but we are full. Because those are the people that legitimately, truly want a place to live. They're on the waiting list for housing, and their name hasn't come up yet, and they are playing by the shelter rules. But you need to understand, and this is where the tolerate me, but I won't tolerate the crowd fails to understand, because, it's a brain cell issue, that a lot of people will not go to these shelters because there's rules that you can't use drugs, and you can't bring drugs in, and you can't be drunk. And you have to check in at a certain time. And while you get a place to stay, a warm bed to sleep in, a shower to use, and you get fed in these shelters, there is a modicum of self-responsibility that you have to have in order to stay in these shelters. And a lot of people don't want to comply with those rules and regulations. So they choose to be homeless. They choose to live in these tents. If you go down to the river area, and if you're from around here, you know where I'm talking about. Y'all go down to the river area and you start talking to homeless people down there. They're the big tent encampments and everything. You start talking to them, and they will tell you, I can't go to the shelter because I'm high. Or, I like to drink. You can't do this at the shelter. You can't do that at the shelter. You have to be in there by a certain time. I don't want the shelter. Here, in my tent, I can do what I want. When I want, where I want, how I want. For some people, it's a matter of they can't find housing with animals. So they choose to live in tents in the summer with their animals. And, I don't blame people. I wouldn't want to give up my animals either. And if it was good weather, let me tell you, I'd be living down by the river in my van with my animals. Yes, sirree. You bet your bottom dollar. But I understand the plight of homeless people, but the solutions that people are trying to come up with. Oh, that person's paying taxes on their property, but that house hasn't been lived in for 2 years. It's abandoned. Let them move in. I think not. Let them live under your porch, dude. That's what that gentleman that made that post was told by quite a few people. Let them live underneath your porch. Let them live there and exchange their tenancy for work. Maybe you need some remodeling done on your apartment. So I exchange. Don't have the police remove them, and don't try to remove them yourself. These are not the most brilliant ideas in the world, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. It's not your property. You're not allowed to be there. The owner of the property does not want you there. You are not giving that owner rent. There is no agreement for you to stay. You have just decided that you're going to stay there because it's a place that there is nobody, whether it's under this poor guy. There are people living under his porch. It's not your property. Stay the hell off it. It's really that simple. And property owners really need to start asserting their property rights. You're paying the taxes. You're paying the insurances. And for the people who want to scream to kingdom come, you have no compassion. You have no empathy. You don't understand homelessness. The property owner is responsible for the things that go on the property. That person living under that dude's porch gets hurt, that dude is going to get sued. His insurance is going to drop him. If these people are using drugs on his property, and for whatever reason the police go on the property and arrest him, and there's drugs all over that property is automatically, for a period of time, hooked up in that drug use. And the owner of that property must secure their own lawyer, go to court, and fight for the right of that property. And then their insurance is going to drop them. It is a big deal. If you didn't buy it, you don't own it. Stay the hell off it. And listen, I come from a place where I've had hard times in my life. Doesn't look it now. I was young. I fell on hard times. This was before children, before husband. Well, I was dating husband. We weren't married. We weren't living together. And I had to work 2 jobs to dig my ass out of some shit. 2 jobs. I had friends. I had family. I had husband. Ultimately, I ended up moving in with my future husband. But no, I fell on hard times. Absolutely. And it was my responsibility to dig myself out of that situation. It was my responsibility to earn my money, to earn my keep, to earn my lifestyle. And yes, I know I've said it 1,000 times. I have been a stay-at-home mom. I have not worked in the last, longest time in my life. I've gone back to work spotty. I went back to work one time when my kids were little, and we thought we needed the extra money and realized that everybody was absolutely miserable. I was miserable. They were miserable. And it wasn't paying for anything because I had to have a babysitter come in between the couple hours that my husband worked and I worked. And ladies and gentlemen, I only made $6.50 an hour. And it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the emotional turmoil to get the extra 60 or 70 bucks a week into the household. And then I worked when the kids empty nested. I worked for a little while, and that sucked too. And most of my life, like 35 years of my life with my husband, I have not worked. So I've been a stay-at-home mom. And we've had our ups and we've had our downs, and we've given up and we've sacrificed and we've suffered. And when I need to, I participated by getting a job with other people to help make ends meet. And that's what you do. That's what you do. I don't like it. I am not a person that can really work for anybody else. I'm a person that works for themselves because I am very opinionated, and I got a mouth and I don't listen. That's what I've been told. I run my mouth too much and I don't listen to orders, and I'm just not good at it. So I don't work for people. I work for myself. And you know, it's hard. It's hard. Life is hard. And I don't want life to be any harder for homeless people as it is for people with homes. But you gotta dig down, and you gotta dig deep, and you gotta get it done. You gotta get it done. And when I was young, just turned 18 years old, I was in a jam, and I worked my ass out of it, and here we are. And if I can do it at 18 years old, like literally the day of my birthday, I found that my life had changed. And ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, you can't take what somebody else has earned, their hard work. You can't take what somebody else pays for and turn it into your own. You got to go get your own. And if that means complying with rules in a homeless shelter to get back on your feet, then that's what you do. You do that for yourself. You do that for your family. You don't live under people's porches. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, know your property rights and know what's going on in your town as far as the ordinances that they're making. Politics start at your local level. And also know what the police are going to do or not do in some instances if weird things crop up surrounding your personal property. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, Carpe Diem, because no one promised you a tomorrow.